Good evening and welcome to the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department Board of Commissioners Candidates Debate for the upcoming April 23rd annual town election. I'm the moderator for this debate, Bill Carroll. Before the debate, lots were drawn to determine the order of the candidates. The order of the candidates will be asked their questions. In order is Wayne Tarr, Thomas Betcher, and Philip Corsi. The press panel this evening is editor Bob Burgess from the Wakefield Daily Item. Good evening, Bob. And presenting questions submitted by the Wakefield voters, which were vetted by the producer, is Colleen Getty, who is organizer of The Room to Write. And good evening, Colleen. There are no opening statements to this evening's debate. In turn, a question will be asked of the candidate by the press panel. That candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the question. Following that response, each remaining candidate will have an opportunity to present his 1-minute response to the question. To allow for as many questions as possible in the time available while maintaining the ability for all to have a chance to respond, candidates should please keep their answers short and to the point. This is all written by David Watts, that's why I have to read it. Questions have not been provided to the candidates in advance. Questions must be relevant to the issues important to the town, and questions or comments by any of the candidates of a personal nature will not be allowed. And I love to enforce that portion of it. At the end of the debate, in turn, each candidate will present a 2-minute closing statement. The producer, David Watts Jr., requires the moderator to maintain strict compliance with stated time limits in order to be able to have as many questions as possible. To be honest, I give them an off-camera signal, and if need be, I just tell somebody to stop, and doesn't impact one way or the other the candidates or their positions or anything like that. Okay, why don't we start? Colleen, you want to go first? You have a question for Wayne Tarr.
All right. Do you think WMGLD gas and electric customers should subsidize solar customers?
Well, that's a question that's going around as we're starting to look into solar customers more and more coming on here in Wakefield. I think so far what the department has come kind of as a policy is we'd allow them kilowatts in excess of what a residential home would normally use, and those that they didn't use, they could sell back to the Wakefield Municipal Light and Gas Department, just like they do now. I think the two things we have to be cognizant of is, number one, there has to be a maximum on the amount of wattage that they'll allow you to sell back, number one. And number two, what we pay back to the solar users shouldn't exceed what the department pays for the electricity we buy. In other words, if we buy electricity at 4.5 cents, we should certainly pay the solar customers back 4.5 cents. And I want to make it clear that I certainly applaud those people that put solar systems in, both for their attempt to make their electrical costs less naturally and their concerns with the environment. But we must remember there's homes that it doesn't work for, the roof structure is different, older people don't afford it, younger people can't afford it, or you're a tenant. So the answer to the question is we should be open to solar. They get grants when they're installing it from both the federal and the state government, which is great. The light department's going to help them along the way and buy back their unused power, but we have to put a maximum to it, and we should only pay back to them what we're paying to buy power off the grid.
Tom, 1 minute.
So I don't really see it as subsidizing solar per se. I myself own solar, and when my solar panels generate excess that my house doesn't consume in real time, it comes back to the grid. What that's doing is offsetting our energy costs that the grid is paying for in real time at that point. And that's a mix of different fuels, whether that's nuclear, gas, oil, whatever is being burned at that point in time. Solar users are offsetting that, and that benefits all users on the grid. So in closing there, I don't feel that that's necessarily a subsidy of all ratepayers. I feel that that's a benefit to all of us of those that have solar are benefiting all ratepayers regardless of
Phil?
I think the department is doing an excellent job of supporting the solar program without kicking in subsidies that are affecting the ratepayer. The job that they're doing in supporting solar, seminars, they're working with Sustainable Wakefield, providing information, guaranteeing the customers that do hook up solar will be hooked up in 2 days. And I think that's good, strong support for the program and not subsidized by the ratepayers.
Okay. Bob, your question is to Tom.
Tom, presented a choice between keeping rates low and pursuing sustainable energy sources. What would you choose?
So I think keeping rates low and choosing sustainable energy sources are, kind of go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive. I think sustainable energy sources can actually help keep our rates stable and even in some instances drive those rates lower. There's been studies and other utilities have gone out and seen that renewables and renewables packaged with battery storage can actually be lower rate costs than our traditional natural gas and oil type plants. So I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a fine balance and kind of a complex problem to solve. I don't think you have to have one or the other. I think you can have both.
Phil, 1 minute.
There'll be considerable challenges going forward as we move to more sustainable sources. Currently, we have some long-term contracts with hydro, nuclear power, and those are protecting us, but clearly there'll be a move to more sustainable wind and solar. Prices are coming down and getting more competitive, and I think we'll be able to successfully keep rates low as we go into the future and become cleaner.
Wayne?
I think, as I understood the question, is what would be, I guess, either affordable rates or renewables. And I think you can do both. But we recently had a survey done here in Wakefield in October of last year, so it's quite current. And 60% of the people, didn't mind paying a little bit more for us to continue some of the efforts we're doing now, as Phil mentioned. But it was very widely thought that they want us to pursue looking at renewable sources, which we do now. I mean, as we start to cut back on nuclear, because nuclear will start to go away, it's going to be a job for the commissioners to continue to look for new renewable sources so that we can keep the rates as low as possible.
Okay, next question, Colleen to Phil.
Would you ever consider selling the WMGLD to one of the large conglomerates like National Grid or Eversource?
As a former National Grid employee, no. Clearly, the benefits of having a municipal department, low rates, ownership by the ratepayer, the quality of service we provide, availability, reliability, sustainability. The people of Wakefield are the owners, and it is a big benefit to the town to have the municipal, and no, I would not consider selling it.
Wayne, 1 minute.
Having never been a National Grid or Eversource customer, but having children that do, I can assure you the last thing we want to do is become one of those. Currently, our electrical rates are about 30% cheaper than both of those sources. And as was mentioned before me, Wakefield's quite lucky to be one of the 41 cities and towns in Massachusetts that maintains its own power company. I hate to keep referring to it, but it certainly is what means a lot. The survey that was conducted in October, that's free for anybody that wants to see it, states in it that the service that is given by Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department is high in the 90s from the folks that live here. So we help them out. The rates are low. The last thing we want to do is become National Grid or Eversource.
Okay. Tom, 1
So,
minute.
I agree with both of the candidates here that no, I would not consider selling our light department. The light department is an asset to all of us here in town, the ratepayers, the businesses, we all own that asset, and we're very lucky to have it. Not only are we one of 41 municipal light plants, we're one of 4 that offers gas service as well. We as ratepayers and voters get to have a voice in who runs that through your vote for one of the candidates, and the commission, ultimately the commissioners run the light department from a policy and procedure. So I would not ever consider selling that such a great asset to all the townspeople here.
Bob, your question to Wayne.
Wayne, in light of last fall's catastrophic gas line system failure in the Merrimack Valley, what is the role, in your opinion, of the Board of Commissioners in overseeing the safety of workers and customers?
Well, one of the roles actually for commissioners is the oversight of safety within the Wakefield Municipal Light and Gas Department. And I think they have a really good record. As some might know, and I know there's been some talk around town about the WMLD is being investigated as a result of what happened in Merrimack Valley. Let me assure you, that isn't what's happening. Okay, what the Department of Public Utilities did is after that Columbia gas explosion in Merrimack Valley occurred, they've gone around and they're doing audits on all the gas distributors in the Commonwealth, okay? I know that the department and the staff was tied up for a day and a half complying and giving information for that audit. So I think we can feel safe here that we have trained people that take courses and classes all the time, and that the safety here with Wakefield Municipal Light and Gas Department is good, if not better, than most.
Tom.
So I agree with everything that Wayne said. Safety is a top priority, and always the tragedy in Merrimack Valley should keep in mind that safety should always be a top priority. The utility, I've been attending the board meetings. The utility has been tied up with a lot of these asks for information around our policies and things, and it's good to review all of that, keeping in mind that safety is a top priority. Attending these meetings, I feel that, nothing's ever certain, but I feel fairly certain that we would never see any sort of tragedy like that here in Wakefield, and very confident in our workers here.
Phil.
Safety is always the #1 priority of the utility company for both the workers and the public. This incident is upwards and over $1 million. The National Transportation Safety Board has issued some partial information. They haven't completed their report yet, but usually these problems are found not to be the acts of one single worker or engineer. They're usually found to be systemic. So the lessons that will be learned is we have to make sure that the lessons are brought in to the safety culture of the department, and that they are embedded in our procedures and process. Currently, the department is having their work plans signed off by a professional engineer from an outside contract. And I'm satisfied that they have the knowledge, information, and are following this issue very closely.
Okay. Bob, your question is to Tom.
I think it might be Colleen's.
Oh, you're up next?
Sure.
Okay, sorry.
You have qualities that you feel distinguish you from the rest of the candidates running. If you were to win, what 3 qualities, experiences, and aspects of your work history do you feel distinguish you from the most from the other candidates running, and how can you bring them forward in your work on behalf of the town and the post of Light Commissioner?
So I come from a technology background. I'm a homeowner here in Wakefield, and in my job, I'm a technologist, engineer. I like to solve problems. I feel that having those unique skill sets, a different voice of a resident, homeowner, and a technologist, I can bring different ideas and new ideas to the board. I feel that commissioner is kind of a bridge between the community, the ratepayers, and the utility, bridging that, all three of those together. So being able to listen to residents and their concerns, utilizing technology, keeping abreast of current technologies out there, both in the consumer space and the utility space. Energy is transforming rapidly. So I think all of those kind of skill sets combined make me a unique commissioner and a different voice at the table, and being able to bridge all three of those together.
Phil, 1 minute.
I am an engineer, graduated from Northeastern in Wentworth. I have
By the way,
four-
you can each have 2 minutes on this question. This is sort of a generic, so go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
I have 47 years of direct work experience working for General Electric in the power generation business and National Grid. I have hands-on utility business in distribution. My management experience includes project management for large projects, undersea cables, maintenance of turbine generators, nuclear reactors, and I feel my experience is directly related to the work of the Light Department and knowledge to the board. Thank you.
Wayne?
First, I'm a lifelong resident of Wakefield, and I think it's important to understand what the role of a commissioner is. A commissioner doesn't get involved in day-to-day operations of the department. We have some very skilled, well-paid employees that do that. In my case, I've got about 50 years now of working in the private sector, managing companies from revenues, expenses, human resources, insurances, fleet management, a lot of those things that line up with what goes on at the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department. When you combine that with my years of service as an elected and appointed official, both as a member of the Board of Selectmen, a member of the Board of Public Works, and a member of the Finance Committee, I think when you put those two together, it makes me an ideal person to continue to oversee what's done at the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department. We at our meetings go through the performance every time there's a meeting, and it's our job to seek and look for renewable power source and energy source as we go along, so we continue to keep the thing that's most important in all of this is reasonable rates for the ratepayers.
Next question is to Phil.
Phil, what areas within the operation of the Gas and Light Department would you like to see improved?
The operations of the Light Department are very well received by the customers, the ratepayers. Improvements will include, as renewables advance, how we hook up solar power, vehicles, how the fleet can be converted from gasoline and diesel to electric vehicles. The challenges are going to be as nuclear power plants retire, as we try to eliminate fossil fuels, the operation of the department and how we contract out and the electricity that we obtain is brought into the production.
Wayne?
I think that in the past 5 or 6 months, and the ratepayers probably wouldn't see it, but Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department put some gas-operated generators at the Wallace Station substation on Salem Street, and some solar-operated batteries on the Farm Street substation as well. In addition to that, We brought in some portable LPG gas, so there were no problems with supply, number one. What a lot of people don't understand, and I'll tell you until I studied and got on the board, I didn't. We buy off the grid, and I mentioned 4.5 cents. We buy off the grid at 4.5 cents. Now all of a sudden in the wintertime comes a peak when everybody wants power and it's buying off the grid at the same time. And what happens is if you exceed what you signed up for, you can end up for that period of time spending 1,000 times that 4.5 cents. So the department worked with foresight in putting those three things, the battery, the solar-powered batteries, and the gas generators in place to negate that and keep our rates down.
Tom?
So some of the operation improvements that I'd like to see utility consider and do is innovation. Innovation is like the peaker plants that we have, the grid storage batteries, although I would like to counter that those grid storage batteries are not powered by solar, but we actually don't have enough solar here in Wakefield to recharge those batteries. They are actually recharged during low energy cost times, which are generally overnight, and the generation is nuclear or hydro or whatever is coming on the grid at that time. The energy field is transforming rapidly. There's lots of new technologies being out there. One of them potentially is residents actually getting batteries in their house. And then how do we tie those distributed batteries into the grid and utilize them in a smart and efficient manner that keeps rates down for all of us. So there's just a lot of things to consider.
Thank you. Next question is for Wayne.
What is your first priority as a WMGLD commissioner?
I think you can probably say it in two simple sentences. Number one is to continue to search for renewable energy sources. And number two, keep the cost reasonable. And both of those things are what has been worked towards now, as both of my opponents will bring up. And I think we're all in agreement that renewable sources have to be seeked out for us to continue to keep the grid full of the energy we have to supply in Wakefield. But it's got to be done in a way and a reason as we go through it so that we keep the rates reasonable. I think we're headed in that direction. I think it's one of the duties and qualifications that the commissioners should be accepting to do, and I'm certainly looking forward to continuing that.
Tom?
So one of the first priorities, if I'm elected, I'd like to see a little bit more education and transparency where our energy comes from. And then coupled with that, I'd like the board to explore things potentially like community solar. Community solar is kind of like a farm co-op where ratepayers can opt into owning solar. We have a lot of municipal buildings here in town that have good solar potential. And with things like community solar, gives an equitable stake for any ratepayer here in town, whether you're a renter, an owner, your house isn't situated well, to have a stake in renewables, benefiting all of us, and including yourself who pays into that community-type solar program.
Phil?
Again, first, safety, followed by keeping rates low and strategic planning in delivering new low-cost sources. Those will be large bets placed on obtaining gross megawatts of wind power from offshore, the Quebec to Maine line to bring hydropower down from Canada. It is those larger projects that will fill the grid and replace power plants as they retire.
The next question is for Tom.
Tom, what are the renewable energy sources that appear closest to reality here in Wakefield?
So I'm not sure I entirely understand the question, but we currently have renewables in the form of wind power, solar, and hydro that are in our mix currently that the light department has contracted. I would like to see all of those strategically expanded. And then, any other renewable sources that come online as technology evolves, that there could be other renewable sources that we don't even know about today. So just kind of always having an open mind around that.
Okay. Phil?
As I said previously, the bulk power needs to come from the 1,400 megawatts from Quebec to Massachusetts. So the two 800 megawatt offshore plans that they propose, the ability to bring that offshore power and connect it to the existing grid. Pilgrim is a great example. On June 1st, we will lose 680 megawatts of power that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And by running an undersea cable and connecting to the existing grid, we get an economic way of doing it. Berkshire Wind out west, the department has an opportunity to buy a larger share. We currently own a share of that now. The real challenges in cleaning the air up, 50% of the homes are currently burning fuel oil. The fuel oil is the first contaminant we want to convert to. Natural gas is now under attack, and we're waiting for heat pump technology to get better.
Yeah. Wayne?
I think, first of all, the question hooks into a couple of comments that both were made. Number one, as far as the transparency goes of where we get our sources of energies, as you just heard Phil tell you, there's a couple of sources. It's public record, and it's on record at the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department. Anybody can get it that wants it. As far as what we're going to be doing in the foreseeable future for looking for renewables, I think the commissioners and certainly the department have done a good job in just exactly what Phil just mentioned. On Wednesday of this week, we're going to do an all-day strategic planning session that the commissioners, the public, and other town officials will be brought into to get some of the answers exactly to where we're going to go and what we're going to do. Where we're going to look for energies, how we're going to look at more renewables, what is it the community wants, okay, and how does it best fit us in the years going ahead. I feel confident with that we're going to do that exactly so that we have the answer to that question.
The next question is for Phil.
All right. This person has 4 questions, so I'm just going to pick one at random. There is a lot of talk in the news these days about electric vehicles. What is your feeling about the benefits of electric vehicles, and what do you think the Gas and Light Board can or should do to help the electric vehicle market develop?
I think that the board and the company has done a good job in assisting the electric vehicle market. Earlier in the year, there was a program where they had introduced the Nissan Leaf. You could test drive the car. The department included a charger for home charging. The future of electric vehicles needs to really look at the conversion of the fleet of the electric company. They can lead in that aspect, and hopefully adding charging stations will help with the public's ability to recharge their vehicle and education programs. Thank you.
Wayne?
I think electric vehicles are going to become more and more of the vehicles you see on the road. I think a lot of us that might want to look at those maybe need something that battery-wise can store it a little more so we can go a little farther with them. But they're certainly attractive. They're workable. They've got to be recharged, as Phil just mentioned. the Wakefield Municipal Light and Gas Department advertised at the beginning of the year and actually had the Nissan, as he said, that you could test drive. I think the one thing that should happen, and I've heard this from a couple electric vehicle people, is we need a charging station here in Wakefield. And my intention is to bring, there's a Main Street program going on where they're going to revitalize downtown Main Street in Wakefield. I think it'd be a great spot to put into the mix of putting some electric charging stations somewhere along that line so that those that drive them would be able to charge them up.
Tom?
So I am currently an electric vehicle owner, or otherwise known as EV. I highly encourage anyone to look into an EV. They're both financially beneficial and environmentally beneficial on a per gallon of gas versus a kilowatt. And an EV does a lot more work on that and on a per energy basis. As we increase our renewable mix in our energy source, your car actually gets greener versus an existing gas-powered car. As mentioned before, the utility has had a couple of EV programs, both for rebate for a car and for a charging point. I'd like to see those programs continued, perhaps even expanded. And to your financial wallet, you never need to do an oil change or anything, so just the operation of an EV is much more financially beneficial than a regular gas-powered car.
Hey, did you guys see the lights flicker there? Anybody want to comment on that? No, it's a little joke, sorry. Okay, next question. Bob is to Wayne.
Wayne, for some of us who aren't quite clear about it, could you explain what factors go into the rate setting process?
I think the biggest one to give thought to is, number one, we do a portfolio of the fuel mix, and we sign contracts up with different types of fuel, be they nuclear, wind, turbo. There's a little bit of solar in our mixture, and gas. And that number is taken in, all that's put in it is what we need for transmitting those materials to your home, and what we pay off the grid, with naturally the amount of money in there that it takes to operate the department efficiently. So the formula, I find, if you stop and you take a look at your bill you get every month, it even lists the kilowatts on there. You can figure out how much you're paying per kilowatt. And again, I think you'll find that it's 30% less than National Grid and Eversource. And whatever money that we're not spending operationally, okay, I think the Wakefield Municipal Light and Gas Department has invested it in projects that save us money in the long run, such as the battery project, the gas power generators I mentioned, and bringing in portable liquid propane so that we don't have a supply problem.
Tom.
So I'm not currently a commissioner, and so I don't have a lot of insight into how the rates are set yet. I do look forward to learning that. But as Wayne had stated, that a large portion of our energy costs are what fuels generate that energy, and then that's all kind of averaged out, and out comes our rate. Obviously, the infrastructure and the parts to run the department are factored in there, capital improvements, and that all are taken into consideration for our rates.
Phil.
As said, 2/3 of the operation budget is consumed by buying the actual commodity, gas or electricity. The remaining 1/3, I feel that the department is doing a good job of managing that budget at a low cost for the ratepayer, while looking and conserving energy into the future.
Next question is for Tom. Colleen?
Natural gas is a greenhouse gas emitting fossil fuel, and Wakefield is one of only 4 municipal gas utilities in Massachusetts. Do you see our town's natural gas business changing over time? How do you think it will change?
Absolutely. I do think that our natural gas business is going to change and evolve with anything out there. New England is natural gas fuel constrained. We can only get so much natural gas through the pipelines here. So as our energy mix diversifies, gets more renewable, we need to look at how we utilize that natural gas here. Moving consumers over to heat pumps, electrifying their heat. Not talking about the heat electrification of the 70s, but technologies like heat pumps and that. So as we move homes to electric heating, that frees up natural gas to power our energy plants to produce electricity, which hopefully drives down all of our electrical rates here in town.
Phil?
I see natural gas stable for now, but it is earmarked as a fossil fuel for elimination by 50% in 2030, by 80% by 2050. So there are basically three targeted areas where natural gas is under consideration. One is generation. We generate 25% of the electricity we get is from natural gas, and that'll have to be reduced. The home, transportation system, fuel oil is under attack. They're trying to go to electric, even trucks. And then home heating oil, they want to eliminate home heating oil first by converting those to gas, and then converting gas by 2050 to heat pumps. Thank you.
Wayne?
Currently, town of Wakefield, the Wakefield Municipal Light and Gas Department, supplies 7,100 homes with gas here, okay? There's no question what's been said before me, okay? It's a fossil fuel. It's something we have to work on to start to negate it and move to other supplies of energy. That's one of the reasons why we're looking into this, having this strategic plan, so we put something together as we go forward in X number of years. I would caution everybody, though, people love to make comparisons between the town of Wakefield, and they can make it against Belmont, Concord, Winchester. You can make it whatever you want. Wakefield is Wakefield, and I certainly wouldn't want us to jump to anything we're going to do. We have to do this strategically so that we don't end up with a 22 or 24% increase like the town of Concord's going to have in 5 years.
You went first, right?
I did.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I'm just keeping track. Okay, next question, Bob, is for Phil.
Phil, Wayne was talking about this strategic planning session tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow morning it starts. Are there things specifically that you'd like to see come out of that planning session?
Yes, I believe it's Wednesday the 3rd. Yes, we're looking forward to seeing what the future involves and what is the cost going to be to go to cleaner, more renewable power, the effects of nuclear plants closing down, and going to more wind, solar, and renewable energy.
Wayne?
The strategic planning session, which is an all-day 8 to 2, I had mentioned before, I think the town administrator and some other officials are coming. As we start to plan this strategically, we have to involve other groups, because as we start to replace these energies with renewable energies, I think we want to include, at some point, some of the municipal buildings. So I think when you talk about transparency, this is all wide open. Everybody has a stake in it. Everybody has the opportunity to be there, and I expect a lively discussion, and I think when we come out of it, we'll have some really good ideas and some progress to work on that will best fit the town of Wakefield.
Tom?
So out of the strategic plan, I'd like to see, looking at all aspects of where we get our power from, whether it's fossil fuels, renewables, infrastructure. technology is always changing. As we start to, as electric meters age out, what do we replace those with? Do we replace them with a smart meter that allow consumers to have real-time access to their utility usage and then make better decisions around their usage? So having the utility make suggestions around potentially how they can better utilize. Energy efficiency programs. I'd like the strategic plan to look at how we can help residents here make their homes better energy efficient. We talk about low rates. A way to reduce your bill is to reduce your consumption. So those are all things that I'd like to see come out of the strategic plan.
Colleen, question for Wayne?
If you had to balance the need between green power and affordable power, what would be your priority?
I think that's probably a two-part question. Okay, to say that we can go to green power today, anybody that sits up here and tells you that we can, it's impossible. But I think you have to keep the affordability in your mind all the time. And as we seek and go through these renewable energy sources, okay, that we keep that in mind. How do we balance it so that here in Wakefield, where we have a very reasonable electric rate, okay, that we don't all of a sudden put people that can't possibly afford that. And I think it's a time process. It's been mentioned from, I think, all of us as we go along. This isn't going to happen overnight. We have to spend some time. And again, only because I looked into it, I have a relative that lives in Concord where their rates are going to go up between 22 and 24% in 5 years. I don't think that's what we want here. We want to take our time, move forward slowly, try to get to all those renewables, and at the same time, keep our eyes on reasonable rates.
Tom.
So affordable and green, they can go together. Just because power is green doesn't necessarily mean it's more expensive. We always have to keep our eye on rates. So as we strategically think about how we replace a fossil fuel with a renewable energy source, what are the ramifications of that? How does that impact all ratepayers? It's just rates are always going to be at the forefront and balancing that affordability with replacing fossil fuels with renewables. I don't think it's one or the other. As I stated before, I think that these things can work together and even potentially drive down our rates by replacing fossil fuels with renewables.
The price of renewables are coming down, but not in the kind of quantities we need to do a massive change out. We have long-term contracts that are protecting us with nuclear plants, and there are bills and being filed that look at the 41 municipals, and currently we have protection that the independent utilities like a National Grid or an Eversource that may be forced to buy more renewables, we have a chance to manage the transition.
Okay, this is going to be our last question. Bob, it's to Tom.
Tom, just keeping in mind that when Eversource or National Grid customers are involved in an ice storm and it takes them several weeks to get their power back, how can you ensure that the high level of service to ratepayers here in Wakefield will continue?
So it's an excellent question. My parents, I grew up in the Merrimack Valley, so I see firsthand my parents in the last ice storm were out of power for 3 weeks. I don't even believe my lights flickered here. One of the great assets and benefits of having the municipal department. I don't want to change anything around the way our reliability that we currently offer, which is, I think we're in the 94 percentile of satisfaction. I think to continue that is to continue the high level of education and training that the department workers receive, and that culture that I think is instilled in them here. I think most of the utility workers that we have here are, lived in town or do live in town, and there's a sense of pride that they have in taking care of the system and servicing all of us customers here in town.
Phil.
I was an actual lead engineer in the storm room in the Merrimack Valley when that ice storm and other ice storms and snowstorms occurred. The screen would light up. One city or town would have 8,000 customers, and we would have to dispatch the crews to that area first. There's a huge benefit of being a municipal and having this local control, and your crews are in town, and if the damage is bad, you can bring people in and supplement them and not share your priorities with 21 other towns.
Wayne.
The response rate, and again, I hate to keep going back to the survey, but the survey's from the ratepayers, okay? I think it was mentioned before me, 96.3% of the people here, okay, find this to be an absolutely reliable source of providing energy to their home. 93.5%, okay, say the response when they have anything happen is wonderful. I too have had people in my family where they've lost power, and sometimes it's not even the length of time. What happens is over a short amount of time, the refrigerator's out and they lose all their groceries. You know, for people trying to make a living and work, and you can't go through $300 or $400 worth of grocery 2 or 3 times a year. So that's a big issue, okay? I think the reliability here is one of the main reasons why we want to stay the way we are. I might add, and Phil kind of alluded to it, a lot of people don't know it, but the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department gives what's known as mutual aid, quite like the fire department does, to the other cities and towns that are involved. If we had a problem, okay, somebody would respond to us, and over the years we've responded many, many times to the other departments. It's something that the town of Wakefield should be proud of.
Okay, we're going to commence with the closing statements. Same order we started in, which was drawn by lots. Wayne, you're up first, 2 minutes.
First, I'd like to thank WCAT for having this forum. Certainly, our illustrious panel has done a great job. I think it moved along. I'm only guessing, but I think we probably answered more questions than what they had prepared. But as I talk around town, the most important issue with ratepayers is the cost of energy from the Wakefield Municipal Light and Gas Department. Our recent survey that I've referred to a lot says that townspeople are very much in favor of keeping rates reasonable while continuing to look for new renewable energy. This survey also rates the WMLD for reliable service and in the area of customer response to any issues. Keep in mind, it doesn't have to be a major one, a wire or something goes down. They have 93.5%. And the other thing that I think is certainly something to be highly thought of, 93.4% of the people in Wakefield think that the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department has a very knowledgeable, helpful staff. We're fortunate to be one of the 41 cities and towns that own our own gas and light department. We want to continue. We never want to be National Grid or Eversource. Our electric rates are 30% lower. My experience, as I mentioned earlier, both in the private sector, combined with what I've done for town of Wakefield positions, I think certainly make me an ideal person to be on the Light Commissioner. We're not going to interfere with day-to-day operations. Our job is to have highly qualified managers in place that will run our system efficiently for the ratepayer. Commissioners oversee, as was mentioned before, Department of Performance, make sure we make progress in renewables, improve safety, and again, provide reliable power at the lowest rates. I applaud those installing solar, but we must use and assure the rest of the ratepayers that it doesn't cause their rates to increase. It's an issue of fairness. Wakefield Municipal Light and Gas has recently completed the 3 projects I've mentioned, and I want to continue to be a commissioner so that we can move other projects forward. I ask for your vote on April 23rd. I can ensure we'll continue with projects like this and protect your rates. Thank you very much.
Tom.
I'd also like to thank WCAT and our panel as well. My name is Tom Betcher, and I want to earn your vote for Gas and Light Commissioner. I live in town here with my wife, Jen, and our 2 girls. Cassie and Sydney attend school here in Wakefield, and we love this town. We've made investments to stay here and raise our family with things like adding rooftop solar to our home, which helps power our home and our electric vehicle. I want to earn your vote for 3 reasons. 1, I care about cost as well. Our gas and light department is doing great things, but there's always room to do better. If I have a seat at the table, I will develop new programs and policies that will help with rates. Two, I care about the environment. Over the past year, I've been meeting with residents, and they care about costs and renewables as well. I'm looking forward to being a new voice at the table and working with our customers on other issues as well. Three, I believe the role of the commissioner is to be a bridge between the utility, the town, and its customers. I have been regularly attending board meetings, and I've been working with residents on renewables as Sustainable Wakefield's solar coach. I believe my passion for technology, innovation will be an asset to the board and, more importantly, to the ratepayers. Please connect with me at my website, tbetcher.com, and on Facebook. Reach out to me, ask me questions. I'm here for you. Wakefield can be a leader, and I want to help us get there. So I ask for your vote on April 23rd.
Phil.
I also would like to thank WCAT, the volunteers, and the viewers for listening in. I have an extensive background in the industry, hands-on experience. I feel I'm uniquely qualified, and if I'm elected, I'll be the only engineer on the board. With that, I can make an immediate and significant contribution to the board. I have proven leadership. I have a collaborative style, integrity, open-minded, no hidden agenda. I ask you for your vote on April 23rd. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. I'd like to thank panel, Colleen and Bob, for the questions, insightful questions for this. Particularly, it's kind of a particular area, so those were some good questions. I'd like to thank all the candidates for participating tonight and putting yourselves on the line by running for public office. You know, it's always an admirable thing to do, and you know, it's a lot of hard work and time. I'd like to thank WCAT for presenting this forum to educate voters of Wakefield. They do a fantastic job here, as you all know. And most importantly, make sure you vote in this year's town election. You can't complain if you don't vote. Again, so we'll be following this in 1/2 hour with the town council debate, which will also, I've been informed by the ever innovative WCAT, will be live streamed. So again, thank you for viewing in. Make sure you vote, and I'd like to thank everybody who participated here tonight. Thank you.